Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Despite voting against the government last night, Fergus Ewing may yet keep the whip. There are murmurings that he will lose it because he voted against the government. But, I mean, the argument there is, if you can be arrested like Nicola Sturgeon and keep the membership, why should you take it away from a man who voted to remove from office a woman who is not a member of his party? He's long voiced his opposition to the Butte House Agreement in general, and he dislikes her because he sees what we see. She's a moron. So he's been saying this all along, and he said that if it comes to the vote, he would vote her out, and then he did so. It's very weird. He was the only one, to be fair, he was the only one of the SNP backbenchers to have the balls to do it. And that's most surprising given that some of the others you'd expected, especially up in the northeast, should have voted against and didn't. But we'll have a look at this now to see if he'll keep the whip. I feel he probably will. But he does have that danger of losing it. It would reduce, of course, the SNP's majority, but only by one seat. And, of course, it's only technically a loss because for 99% of the things, he'll probably still vote with the SNP anyway. It won't be a permanent loss of whip. If it is, it'll be like a temporary one, just to show that Humza Yousaf does have a spine. Breaking news, no he doesn't. But anyway, we'll have a look at this now, see what's going on. Here goes. So, Fergus Ewing facing loss of SNP whip over the sack Lorna Slater vote. I honestly don't think he will, or if he does, it'll be a temporary, it won't be a permanent loss. Old Winnie will be whirling in her urn, won't she? The former SNP Cabinet Secretary, Fergus Ewing, is facing the loss of the party whip after voting to sack Green Minister Lorna Slater yesterday. I will say I have got a lot of respect now. Not that I particularly like her or anything, but I've got a lot more respect for Fergus Ewing for doing exactly what he should have done and what a lot of others should have done. He showed that he had a little bit of spine. Well done to him. I mean, he's still terrible. He still like his politics, but he stood by it. The Inverness MSP, son of SNP legend Winnie Ewing, could be suspended from the Holyrood Group by the end of the day, the Herald understands. SNP sources said Mr Ewing had crossed a line when he supported a Tory motion of no confidence in Miss Slater over the failed deposit return scheme. Is it only because it was a Tory proposition? If it was a Labour one, if it was a Liberal Democrat one, would they be saying the same thing? You have to ask that. Also, she's in the Greens, not the SNP. He didn't vote against anyone in the SNP. He's shown party loyalty. And I believe he's actually shown more party loyalty by trying to get out of office a woman who is bringing the whole thing into disrepute with her stupidity and ignorance. She is just so inept. She's incapable of doing her job. I can't think of a worse word. Anyway, one told the Herald that since the Butte House Agreement cementing the SNP Green joint government in 2021, the Green co-leader was considered one of our own. Hardly. In addition, any suspension would not be a token punishment over the summer recess, for instance, but would cause Mr Ewing pain. I don't think it is. I suspect they won't, because that, as I say, would take a bit of balls by Humza Yousaf, and it's not something that he's noted for, is it? If Mr Ewing loses the whip and is forced to sit as an independent MSP, it would raise more questions for Humza Yousaf about why Nicola Sturgeon retains the whip despite her arrest as a suspect in a long-running criminal inquiry into the SNP's finances, an inquiry from which she has not yet been exonerated, and therefore could still represent a major embarrassment and headache for the party, and yet he has not removed her whip. And it's as plain as that. Miss Slater survived the vote after SNP and Green MSPs backed her 68 to 55. Covered that first thing this morning. Mr Ewing was the only SNP MSP to support calls for Miss Slater to be sacked. A long-term critic of the recycling scheme, he called it fatally and irredeemably flawed. And yet the Scottish Government had ignored business concerns. They've ignored everyone. They ignored the experts. They ignored everyone. Now, what I did find odd, I suppose, is that in that whole vote, this is just a little aside from this, but he was the only MSP backbencher to vote against. I'm very surprised that Kate Forbes, Ash Regan for 2, certainly a couple of others didn't vote against. I would have thought that they could have done that quite safely, especially in the case of Kate Forbes, because to remove the whip from Kate Forbes after she faced him in the election would be politically very, very difficult for Humza Yousaf to do that without looking vindictive and petty. And so I would have thought that Kate Forbes would have taken the opportunity to give Humza Yousaf a bloody nose. Certainly Ash Regan as well. And with those 3 marching through the other door, as it were, it may have encouraged 1 or 2 others. And at that point, having her out could have been an absolute possibility. And so I am very surprised that Forbes and Ash Regan not taking that opportunity to, embarrass Humza Yousaf massively. Anyway, he said after voting for Miss Slater's removal, this is Fergus Ewing, the minister with responsibility for the scheme does not enjoy the confidence of business. I have therefore voted to seek a new minister to appoint to take over this troubled matter, to deal with the huge fallout of numerous compensation claims and reconsider afresh how best to achieve recycling objectives. And they're just saying that it was due to start there, blah, 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 just sort of rounding off with stuff we've covered before. But isn't it weird, though, that he was the only one with enough spine in the whole of the MSP to actually say, we need you out. But she must know, sitting there now, she must know that she is not in a very secure position. Her whole job is sitting on a sugary peg at the moment. Too many more cock-ups and she'll have to go. And I think too many more. And it will, if it came again, if there was another vote of confidence again, after another cock-up, I think she would undoubtedly go. But I think she needs to consider her position anyway. So there we go. I shall round off and come up. Now, they reckon that this decision on whether he retains the whip or not will be done by the end of business today. I do think he'll probably retain it, or at worst, it'll be, you'll get like a 6-week suspension or something. But they're about to go on holiday anyway. I don't think that they will give him too heavier a burden, shall we say, that because ultimately there will be a parting of the ways between the SNP and the Greens. And you don't want to be punishing a man who will then be a part of your party when the Greens are not aligned with you. It creates a little bit of bad feeling, and it's certainly at the ground level. It won't look good, and it certainly also won't look good that you get rid of him and yet retaining Nicola Sturgeon, who is seen by many as toxic now, needs to be sort of kept at a distance. So it just shows a complete lack of political nous by Humza Yousaf that he's allowing this. He's allowing it to happen. He's allowed himself. I was going to say he's allowed himself to do this. He's done this. It's his decisions the whole way. Everything that's transpiring now is because of his actions. Because he's just not a very shrewd operator. But anyway, guess what you get, don't you? Hire an idiot. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, keep fighting for the truth, because it is coming. Bye.